Welcome to the Daily Insider here on Vegas Insider. I am Kevin Rogers, and we made it to March. So we can now say that March Madness is underway in a sense. Today's Tuesday, March 1st. And joining us today, it is Stephanie Otey. There she is. Good morning. And we got NBA. We got college basketball. We have the silly lockout talks, which are actually not far from here in South Florida. And hopefully Major League Baseball can figure out their stuff. They extended the deadline to 5 o'clock today. They just got started about an hour ago. And the one thing I'll say, Stephanie, about this before we get to the basketball is I've never felt so stupid when I look at the things that they are going over. And I'm saying, I didn't realize all these laundry list of things they have to figure out. It's just crazy.
Yeah, when they were talking about that deadline, I figured it wasn't a hard deadline. I mean, they extended it, but they were playing the tough act. I just wonder, will they extend it again if they don't reach this agreement? But you're right. There are a lot of some wild requests, but we'll see if they get there. I don't know. Who do you think is going to be tougher in this one and hold out longer?
I mean, I got to think the players want to draw that line so they don't show they're getting pushed around. The owners don't care about losing the games. I think the players, they want to get as much money as possible. They don't want to have a month's worth of games. See, here's the thing. They say they're not making up games, but what if they lost a week's worth of games? They're making out to be they're going to extend this thing for 2 more months, which it could be done in a few days. It could be done today. Those are kind of the things that we don't know. I just hate these lockouts and these situations. You know, it's come this far. You say to yourself, why did you wait 2 months and now so we're going to sit down? You know, we didn't care about this in December because so much was going on around it. In sports, we're like, we don't really care. But now we're like, oh, we care.
Yeah. I mean, well, and even with the COVID and everything, they were wondering if it would even start on time this year. I didn't see how that was still going to be a question, but maybe they were just holding off to see who would come to the table first. You know, because that the art of negotiation, you know, who's going to be the one to approach first. Yeah, it is tricky. I mean, I do think that the players are going to hold out and wait, but then again, they're losing games if the longer they wait. So I think the league will be the one to fold first.
Well, the good news is when late last night, they say they had that midnight deadline. We're going to get it done by midnight, but I'm thinking to myself, okay, what if you're still negotiating at 11 o'clock, 11:30? You're going to say, okay, it's 11:59. It's midnight. Sorry, it's cut off.
Did they specify a time zone even?
You know, and that's why I said, oh, well, wait till 5 o'clock today. It's like, yeah, of course you'll wait because you want to get a deal done. That's why you're extending this self-imposed thing when you could say, look, if you got it done by 8 o'clock tonight, is that big of a deal? 5 o'clock, the bomb's going to go off at 5 o'clock. So I don't know. I'm over it. I'm over all of it. Let's go to basketball, Stephanie. Let's talk about things that are actually going on, actually real games. All right. Let's talk some college basketball. Let's look at some games for tonight. In the Big East, you have Providence and Villanova. And we had discussed it last week about Providence being one of the quote-unquote, lucky teams, fortunate teams. And you look at every single game they play. Granted, they just blew out Creighton over the weekend. But Xavier, they beat in 3 overtimes. Butler, they beat in overtime. DePaul, they beat in overtime. Every game is close. Now you get Villanova. Now you get the class of the Big East. Villanova's laying 9.5 in this game. Mm-hmm. Final regular season game for the Friars. They're in the tournament, but now it's just about trying to beat the top dogs in Villanova.
Well, these two teams played 2 weeks ago in February. Villanova had 3 guys score more than 20 points or more over Providence. And so you would think, Providence can make adjustments, but I don't think that they'll be able to surpass Villanova. I think, the line is pretty steep, I think 9.5. I think that Vegas is basically wanting you to take Providence, but I have Villanova in this one. I think they'll cover 9.5.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the line is big for a reason, and also Villanova coming off a loss to UConn, and they've struggled a bit covering lines of late. They didn't cover against Seton Hall to win. They didn't cover against Georgetown. They didn't cover against St. John's. And look, Jay Wright's team is always going to lay a bunch of points. But also with Providence, you got to kind of wonder, when are you going to have that clunker that you keep sneaking by in a lot of these games? Again, doesn't mean they're not a good team. But, man, I mean, for them to be 24-3 on the season, Villanova's laying nearly double digits tonight. I'm with you. I think that Villanova is worth a strong look. Now we transition to your Buckeyes. And look, Nebraska's been bad. We know how bad they've been. It feels like since they've entered the Big Ten in basketball, they've been bad. Like I don't remember the only time they've been good in basketball. 8-21 this year, and I think Fred Hoiberg got an extension too, which is crazy. But they just beat Penn State. They blew them out. They've covered a couple in a row now. The Buckeyes, Stephanie, explain yourself. Losing to Maryland over the weekend by 15.
They never led by more than 2 points. Trailed from the 11-minute mark. That was a rough one. So when you look at the spread on this one, it does make you question. They went a long stretch where they would never have back-to-back losses. They rebounded quick. They're 6-1 against the spread in their last 7 games following a straight-up loss. It is steep for me, that line. So I like the under here. Nebraska, they play fast tempo. Ohio State's a little bit slower. The last time these two teams met, they didn't reach 148.5 points, which is where it's basically at 150.5 now. I like it under just because I think 15.5 is a little too long for me.
Well, and also, too, you're right about Ohio State that they have not lost back-to-back games this year, and they should win this game, which depends if they'll cover the number. But Nebraska gave them problems the first time. That was a back-and-forth game, and Ohio State actually opened it up in overtime and won by 8 in Lincoln. But the Buckeyes hit 16 threes in that game. E.J. Liddell did not play well in that game. It was 2 of 14 from the floor in that first matchup. But now, we know Nebraska's not winning this game, most likely. It's just about now, can Ohio State cover this one? And
outright numbers at like plus 800. So I'm not taking Ohio State outright.
Well, and also, too, the final 2 games, they got Michigan State at home, Michigan at home. And obviously, Ohio State's not going to be laying as much to those teams. So you say, all right, do you go the other way and say, all right, this is the last time Ohio State's laying a ton of points. Maybe you go the other way and take Nebraska because they're playing with a little more confidence of late. But also the other number, Ohio State seems to be focused after they lose a game this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Chris Holman talked a lot about that too. I've covered this team before. I do think that they have, they rebound quick. Are you taking the spread on this one or the total?
I'm passing on this game. I just don't like it. I don't want to trust Nebraska, number one. And, especially in this situation where Nebraska has 8 wins. They're coming off a big win over Penn State. You don't win a lot of games. I don't know how you respond off a win. Like we talk about Ohio State off a loss has been pretty good. Nebraska off a win, just looking back at what they've done, they lost by 23 at Iowa after they beat Minnesota earlier this year. They lost in overtime to Ohio State after they beat Kennesaw State before that. The issue is Nebraska got a lot of their wins in non-conference. So, you're beating teams you should be beating. And then when you're playing teams in your own conference, there's not even a sample size really of them coming off a win because very few of their wins have come against Big Ten teams.
Mm-hmm. Well, and here I see that the Cornhuskers, they've been an underdog by at least 14.5 points 3 times this season. They've covered twice. So
they hang.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a tough one for me.
I just, you know what? I'm not touching this game. I just don't like it because, again, it goes back to the whole you're trying to make a case. This is what I always say, Stephanie. If you, and someone told us a long time ago, it's a great advice. If you're going to take a big underdog, take them because you think they have a chance to win, but the points are kind of insurance. If you don't think Nebraska is going to win this game, don't just hope they're going to lose by 14 if Ohio State outclasses them.
Yeah. And I don't see why taking Ohio State to cover 15.
Yeah, I don't trust that because I think gun to head, I think that Ohio State maybe can win this game 13-14. It'll get close to that. I don't think they're winning this game by 30. I just don't see that, but also I can't see Nebraska winning the game.
Yeah. And like I said, like the money line was Ohio State minus 800. That, it just shows like how clearly obvious Vegas thinks that Ohio State's going to win it. Why take a spread at 15?
Yeah, no, I'm just passing on that one. So another Big Ten game, Michigan State, and Juwan Howard still sidelined for the Wolverines. They beat Rutgers in the first game after that whole altercation against Wisconsin. Then they lost to Illinois. But Michigan State, They were struggling. They had dropped 3 in a row. They beat Purdue in a last-second 3, a game that Michigan State was in control in. And then Purdue came all the way back. Purdue, one of those teams on Saturday, all those top 10 teams that lost, they were one of them. Before we look at this game, do you have any faith in Purdue to make a run? Because I don't have faith in them. I really don't. Matt Painter, like every year they have a good team, but then they fall apart somehow in the first 2 rounds. Do you think Purdue has any chance of going far?
Well, they played Wisconsin today.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Yeah.
Yeah. So I looked at that game too, thinking if they'll go far in the tournament.
24-5. Here, we'll pull this up for a second. Here, let's pull this up. They're right now number 4 as far as the odds to win the whole thing.
What is it for the whole tournament?
Yeah, Purdue's at 12 to 1 odds. You see Gonzaga, Arizona, Kentucky. So Purdue's in that mix. I don't know. I just don't think they're.
I don't think so.
I don't know. There's always something about them. They're 24-5. Again, we'll talk about the Wisconsin game in a second, but I don't. There's just something about them that they always have some kind of. Like last year was North Texas they lost to in the opening round in overtime. That was after they lost to Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament. So they had a quick flame out in the Big Ten and then a quick flame out in the NCAA tournament. And then a few years ago, that's the only time they went pretty far to Matt Painter was losing to Virginia. I remember that game. That was when they lost in overtime. They haven't had that many of them. So I'm going to go with no on that one. I don't have faith in Purdue to go far.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah. All right. So let's look at this game, this Michigan State-Michigan game against Purdue and Wisconsin. All right. So Michigan State-Michigan. So Michigan State, they're 19-9. They're living on the edge right now. I feel like Michigan State needs a strong performance to close the season and get a few wins in the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah. I mean, Michigan did have a little bit of a dagger thrown at them, but they weren't doing so great. Michigan State, they had that great win over Purdue. Michigan's desperate for a win just so that they can get off that tournament bubble, but I feel like they just have a lot to overcome. They're favored here by 4.5. I lean towards Michigan State. I think Izzo is in a better position than Phil Martelli, but 4.5. I think it'll be close, but I'd still take Michigan State to cover here.
Because I look at what Michigan State's done this year. They beat Michigan already in East Lansing by 16, but past Purdue, that was the best win they had. They beat Connecticut earlier in the season, but not a lot of great wins. Indiana's all right. Maryland's not that great. They beat Wisconsin, but down the stretch, a lot of the losses, Northwestern, Rutgers has pulled off some upsets. We've seen that. Losing to Penn State's a bad loss. But then we said Michigan State gets Ohio State coming up, and then they get Maryland at the end, who they should beat at home. So if they can win 2 of 3, you're 21-10. They're probably in. But you can't have a meltdown here at the end and lose 3 straight and a flame out in the Big Ten tournament.
Michigan State is the team that screwed me last year, though. So I'm still.
You are anti-Izzo.
No, I love Izzo, but last year it just burned me so bad in the tournament. So I guess I still have a little bit of that left over, but I mean, Izzo's got a long body of work that can make up for that. And Michigan, it's just kind of like a little bit of a question mark now with the issues that they had. Howard would be able to come back in the tournament though, with just a 5-game suspension. So I don't know. There's just a lot of question marks around them that I'm not willing to bet on.
Yeah, I mean, again, another game. I know we're discussing it. I just don't love that game either. You want to make an argument for Izzo and Michigan State to say, okay, coming off this win over Purdue, but also we saw how Michigan responded in the Rutgers game. They played very well the first game that Juwan Howard wasn't coach. And Phil Martelli's a guy who was at St. Joe's for a long time. So it's not like, this is a first-time coach either. I mean, you got a veteran coach running them right now, but again, Michigan just hasn't been what they were, last few seasons. Yeah. All right, so Purdue and Wisconsin now, and Purdue off this loss to Michigan State. So they take on the Badgers, and Wisconsin beat them already as 13-point dogs. Now Purdue laying 3.5, and Wisconsin off of the win at Rutgers. They slipped by Minnesota, again, the Michigan game. even though I just kind of trashed Purdue a little bit, say they're not going to go far in the tournament, I kind of like them here in this spot tonight, just because you lost to them earlier, laying 13. Now you're laying 3.5 on the road. You got to think Purdue will be pretty focused. In Wisconsin, you don't get Wisconsin normally as a home underdog too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was leaning towards Purdue as well, and this one at least. Just coming off the loss at Michigan State. I mean, Wisconsin does have Johnny Davis, and so he scored 37 in the last time these two teams met. He averages 20 points, 8 rebounds a game. But I think that Wisconsin, I mean, there's a lot that they can expose. Purdue can expose Wisconsin on at least. But I don't think that Purdue will go far in the tournament. I do have them for this one though.
Yeah, we can still like Purdue tonight and not think they're going far in the tournament. So at least we got that kind of going for us. But you know what, too, is that Wisconsin 6-2 at home in the Big Ten and lost to Rutgers, lost to Michigan State. And Michigan State's so weird. I don't know. I don't know what to do with that team. But as far as a dog, what they've done, beat Rutgers, beat Indiana, beat Michigan State all on the road, lost at Illinois, one at Maryland, one at Purdue. So they've been a quality dog. Got blown out of Ohio State early at Big Ten play. But I just look at now you're only laying 2 baskets with this Purdue team as opposed to when I guess the adjustment with Wisconsin, seeing, maybe they weren't as bad early on in Big Ten play, to lay 13 with Purdue. I'd lean towards Purdue here in this spot.
I don't like the way either of these teams have gone against the spread in conference play. Wisconsin 10-8, and then you look at they're 16-12 in the season. I don't like this one either, but yeah, if I had to choose one in the Big Ten today, it would be this one, but I'm not completely set on it yet.
Now, as far as the other, I just want to look at this really fast. That the one thing I'll give Purdue, though, is that when they play, for the most part on the road, they've won a lot of these games in conference play. I mean, Michigan State and Michigan, they lost at Indiana. A lot of these games they haven't covered, they were heavy favorites. I just think that this one is manageable for Purdue. So I like that one. Not like a lock of the day, but as far as just us discussing it here.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at some NBA, though. Let's flip over to this one. Hawks and the Celtics. They meet up in Boston tonight. And the Celtics, they were playing very well. They lost to the Pacers on Sunday. And they just got boat raced by the Pacers, an Indiana team that is not playing well at all. They gave 128 in that game to Indiana. So now they're back at home. They get Memphis and Brooklyn coming up. So they just beat Atlanta on Super Bowl Sunday. Actually, quick story about this game, Stephanie, that I had Atlanta in that game. They were up 10 at the half on Boston, getting 7.5. I'm thinking, okay, this is good. Celtics end up outscoring the Hawks 42-23 in the third. And then the Celtics win by 10. So that one kind of was a burn there if you had the Atlanta Hawks. But the Hawks, see, they're still trying to play for their playoff lives. Boston's going to be in the playoffs, but Atlanta, they've won 3 or 4, playing a little bit better. What side do you like? Is there any side you do like in this game?
I would lean towards Atlanta. I do have a prop on Trae Young over 27.5. I do know that the Celtics are the second best in defensive rating, but Atlanta is second best in offensive rating. And the Celtics allowed, like you said, the Pacers to go 17 for 33 from behind the 3-point line on Sunday. The Hawks can take advantage of that around the perimeter. The Hawks actually are 7th in the league in defensive rating over their last 4 games. So I look at that, and like between the way these two defenses are playing, I like the under here as well. But I lean towards the Hawks to cover. They won 2 of their 3 meetings and they covered. You talked about that one on Super Bowl Sunday. But when these two teams play together, usually it's in favor of the Hawks.
Yeah, and you know what, too? You've had so far now the 3 totals we've seen, and the home team has won all 3 meetings, like you mentioned. 216.5 under the first one, 217.5 in the second one, 224, and after 227.5. So part of me thinks, okay, this total keeps moving up. Is this because of what we just saw with Boston and Indiana? We know Atlanta's not good defensively. But also, now is this going to be the shootout between these two teams? That even though Boston has scored 99, 92, and 105 against a pretty not great Atlanta defense, that are the Celtics due to bust out? We know Atlanta can score at will too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking the under on this one just because of how these two defenses are. Like you said, Atlanta hasn't been great, but at least in their last 4 games, they've been doing well defensively.
Yeah, and the numbers are better for them. Yeah.
And I don't like how the Celtics played against the Pacers. You'd think that they'd bounce back from that, but I think that the Atlanta can take advantage of it. And I have that prop on Trae Young. He's had 41 points, 11 assists to win over the Raptors just Sunday. And he has 30 points and 10 assists the last time they played the Celtics. So I saw his points at 27.5. Looked good.
5 and 9. 5. I'm just counting something really fast. Okay, so the Celtics are 5 and 10 against the spread. Their last 15 as a home favorite. So that's another one in your pocket for the Hawks. That they have not been overwhelming at home. I feel like that on the road they played so much better. They had that blowout at Brooklyn, and I get Brooklyn is shorthanded against Philadelphia, again against Brooklyn. They've had some really resounding wins on the road. At home, yeah, they beat up the Heat a few weeks ago. They beat up the Kings, but besides that, they lost at home to Detroit. They barely squeaked by Denver. They barely squeaked by Charlotte. So, yeah, I can see that this being a little bit of a closer game than we think. All right, so Golden State goes to Minnesota, and Klay Thompson's out tonight for the Warriors, and Minnesota off of a good win in Cleveland last night. Really quality win. Karl Anthony Towns hit that 3 at the end to break that 122-122 tie. The Timberwolves were up big in this game, and the Cavs came back and tied it up. But what do you think here? Minnesota, I mean, almost like a pick 'em. And Golden State coming off a bad meltdown against Dallas. They were up 21 in that game on Sunday, lost by 6. They've lost, what is that now? 4 of 6 they've lost, and 1 win was over the Lakers. Does that really count? I mean, for as bad as Lakers have been. So, so you think Golden State here bounces back?
I do. At the All-Star break, I was high on the Warriors, thinking Draymond Green, when he comes back, Warriors could be the team to challenge the Suns. They've been very rocky lately. They're 2-5 in their last 7 games. But Minnesota, like you said, they got the win last night in Cleveland. They blew a 23-point lead, though. So they couldn't hold on to that. They did rally back, but they had to play back-to-back games. That was a hard-fought win. They're not good in back-to-back games. They're 3-7 this year. Their defense has been inconsistent lately. Warriors, we know, can shoot. I have the Warriors to win. It's 1.5 point spread. I like the Warriors here, even though they've been shaky lately, but I think that Minnesota is going to be fatigued.
Yeah, and the first 3 meetings all over. So it's the opposite of the Atlanta-Boston, where Atlanta-Boston, the first 3 are all under. The first 3 have gone over. And Golden State won 2 at home already against Minnesota. The game in Minnesota, when they played back in January, Steph Curry didn't play in that game because he got hurt the game before against Memphis, and they just sat him out just because they didn't need him. And Minnesota won in resounding fashion. So now let's see if the Timberwolves can beat them with Steph in the lineup. The Warriors should be motivated. And like you mentioned, a really good number there. 3-7 Minnesota with no rest this year. That means something, that this team does not play well on the second of a back-to-back. And since the All-Star break, actually, it's back up a little bit. This month already, throw this out. At Sacramento, back-to-back, lost by 13. Toronto at home, lost by 12. Philly in Harden's debut, lost by 31. So in some of those games, they're not even close enough in some of those games.
Mm. Yeah, and like you said, they're not good back-to-back. But, I mean, that was a tough game last night. I mean, they thought they had it, and then they had to claw their way back. So I don't think that they'll bounce back quick. They were on the road last night, too. I mean, this is an easier one for me. I believed in the Warriors, but they've been rocky. I think this will be a good one for them.
Yeah, Golden State needs this to, and especially with the way Phoenix is playing. Phoenix has not played well with Chris Paul out the last few games, so
No.
they need to. If the Warriors want to try to catch them, this is their opportunity.
But it is tough in the West too, where the Warriors could drop significantly if they don't snag a win here. So
Well, you see how well Memphis is playing too. That they had that big win over the Spurs last night, so Memphis is kind of coming back. I'm not that they've come, but they can come and catch the Warriors maybe.
Mhm.
Let's look at one more game out west: the Mavs and the Lakers. Okay, so LA has been beyond horrible. They're 3-7 their last 10. They needed that crazy comeback to beat the Knicks. They held off the Jazz, but they had that ugly loss to the Pelicans a few nights ago. They can't score. Anthony Davis is out. Dallas, like we mentioned before, they came back to beat Golden State. They've covered 4 in a row now, but now you're laying points. The last time the Mavs played the Lakers was back in December. Luka was out that game. They went to overtime. Lakers ended up winning, but Anthony Davis played. He's not playing tonight, and Luka is going to play. But I do like the over on this game, 216.5. Last time they had a low-scoring game. It was 93-93 at the end of regulation. Lakers won in overtime, 107-104. Still stayed under the total of 212. I think they score a little more tonight. Lakers have scored as a dog. They've been pretty good there. I know Dallas has been a great defensive team. I think it's going to be a little high-scoring, but what do you like in this game?
Definitely Dallas. The Lakers, it's a hot mess. You can only rely on LeBron so much. Dallas, you mentioned they're 8-2 against the spread in their last 10, while the Lakers are 5-5. We saw the way these two played last time. I can't bet on the Lakers in anything. I feel like I don't like the way they're playing. I feel like there's a lot of frustration on that team as well. We saw that kind of come out in the All-Star break. They got to hit a stride or something. I don't know what gets them back on track. I don't think it's happening this year.
And time is running out. Everyone thinks, or at least people around the Lakers, they'll be fine. They're 27-33. They are not in a position. Even Brooklyn right now is the 8 seed. For as much as Brooklyn, they've been so bad, they had the trade. They're still there in the playoffs. The Lakers right now are the 9. And again, if you're 9 or 10, you still get into the play-in tournaments. You still have a shot to, in a sense, save your season if you could put it together. But they're 3.5 back of the Clippers for 8. You have the Pelicans kind of hanging around, the Blazers and the Spurs kind of hanging around, that the Lakers can't afford to have a 5 or 6 game losing streak. And then all of a sudden, the Pelicans win a few, the Blazers maybe win a few, but you're 6 under 500. You got to stop losing games if you have a shot to go to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. And LeBron tried to bring this crowd around him. And you mentioned a few shows back, Russell Westbrook was 7th, 6th in salary in the league.
No, he was 4th or 5th. It was something crazy.
I can't imagine how many guys on that team are frustrated with that. I'm sure he's frustrated with himself. I'm looking at his stats now. He had a 16, 18, 17, 19-point game. But then, before the break, he had 5 points, 9. His rebounds are all over the place. He's got 3. He's got a game with 10, 4. There's no consistency whatsoever.
I think they realize, LeBron is never, ever, ever, ever going to come out and say, I was wrong on one of these moves. He's never going to say that. But you had, before this year, you had Kyle Kuzma, who's a really good young player. You had Montrezl Harrell, who I guess maybe got lost in the shuffle a bit. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who's a decent shooter. You had 3 guys who could have been contributors on this team around Anthony Davis and around LeBron. You dump those 3 to Washington to get Westbrook. And yeah, he's put up numbers, but it's still been a complete disaster. And Westbrook, at this point, is just shot. And he was a really good player at one time. I just think he just has nothing left in the tank. I think that's the problem. But this Laker team, LeBron is trying to be the GM. He's trying to get the pieces in place. And they had so many good young players that they parted ways with so he can get veterans in. It's just not working anymore.
Yeah. He was trying to be a GM in Cleveland. Sometimes we saw a power struggle almost with coaching, but in Cleveland, it worked. He was able to do that. it's not working in a market like LA. And even guys he chooses to bring on, like in Westbrook, it doesn't pan out. That's why I loved seeing the Bucks win last year, because Giannis went to the team he was drafted by, stuck with them, and didn't try to bring an all-star cast around him. I just don't think LeBron will get another ring.
I'm looking at this roster for a second. Carmelo's 37. Trevor Ariza is 36. Bazemore's 32. Avery Bradley's 31. Anthony Davis is 28. All right. LeBron's 37. Dwight Howard's 36. DeAndre Jordan's going to be gone anyways. He's going to be waived, 33. Malik Monk's 24. Westbrook's 33. You only have a handful of guys that are under 28. Everyone else, you can't win in this league.
Yeah, they can't
keep a team of all guys over 30. You can't do it.
Yeah, like you see, like they're all rotating in stretches really when they're hurt too. Like they can't withstand the season. Like you need to have some, maybe that's why, he's trying to stay alive until his son he can play with his son.
Which is ridiculous all in itself, because how do you know where he's going to go?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. But LeBron has a lot of influence in the league. Maybe he could convince anyone to take him, but
yeah, he's going to say to the Lakers at the end, listen, sign him. But here's the other thing too.
But the Lakers have been listening to who he's been suggesting, and it has not worked out.
But if you're the Lakers, are you going to say get lost? Because then you're totally off the map. Like he's the only reason why they're somewhat relevant at this point.
Yeah, they'll be relevant, but we're seeing now like Lakers are feuding with their own fans even after their last loss. It's a hot mess right now in LA. Like we talked about kind of some of the battles between the Clippers and the Lakers. One of them should be just claim the LA fan base at this point, but who's it going to be?
But the thing I'll give the Clippers is you're without your two best players right now. So, and they're still kind of fighting, considering that Kawhi Leonard's a top 10 player. He hasn't played the whole year. Paul George, top 15 player, and he's been out for a while, and hopefully he comes back later in the season. But you have two guys that are look at any other team, take away their two best players, and where are they? The Clippers done a great job considering they're at 500 without their two best players. Like, take away LeBron and AD, this Lakers team is freaking shot. They're shot already without AD.
Yeah.
So I just can't see where I don't see where any other team can do that. What the Clippers are doing, I think, is extremely impressive.
Yeah, I think that LeBron is the one carrying the team, and he's tried to do that before. Like, that's why he went after these all-stars to build an all-star team, because he knows it's a team sport. He can't do it alone, and that's what we're seeing right now. Like, they lean on him for everything, and he can't do it alone.
But that's fine. I don't mind you not doing everything alone, but also at the same time, you gotta get the right guys.
Yeah,
and that's where he's messed up. He's got the right guys.
Yeah, they have to show up.
So again, we'll see what happens in the Lakers. A home dog tonight to Dallas, which you wouldn't have thought earlier in the season, but of course, this is what it is because they've been so bad recently. So we are getting closer, Stephanie, to March Madness, and it'll be here. Well, actually, we're kind of starting it now. You have the smaller conferences beginning, and then starting like Tuesday, I believe, is when you get more of the big tournaments starting up. So I still believe that is the best week of the year, is next week and not the week after, because really Thursday and Friday, you have 16 games a day, and they're all kind of staggered a little bit. And you have a lot of teams that people really don't know. I still think next week is better than the following week.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. I'm happy to get to March just because February was rough for me. Like, the Super Bowl obviously did not go my way. Last night I was 0 for 3. I thought I was like going hard on the Eastern Conference battle. Heat and the Bulls. That did not go well for me. But I'm just happy to get like a clean slate for March. There's so many games to bet on with March Madness. So maybe I'll convert from doing a lot of NBA to more college at this point. But I feel like college it can be very unpredictable once we get into March.
It will be, and especially you look at the Big Ten and some of these other conferences. I mean, you get some of these good teams together. It'll be very interesting to see who comes out of it and who can make, if any bubble team can make some kind of run here over the next few weeks will be interesting. But hey, it's definitely gonna be a lot of fun coming up over the next few weeks with March Madness. So looking forward to that. So tomorrow I'll be back on. Then you're on Thursday, Stephanie, like we had last week. So looking forward to that. And yeah, we're just getting into a really fun time now, at least of the spring. With baseball probably being on the shelf for a while, depending on what happens today.
February is just always rough. We don't have football, and we're trying to get to March. And fortunately, it was a shorter 28 month or 28 day this year. But I'm very relieved to get to March. It's a good way to pass time until football season. And gosh, who doesn't love college hoops in March?
Oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun. And check us out at Vegas Insider. And we'll have a lot of the conference tournaments coming up over the next 12 days or so before we get to Selection Sunday. And we'll be all set with that. Stephanie, what do you have? What are you looking at this week? What do you have on the Soch? Am I trying to sound cool by saying the social media, the Soch? What do you have?
I had to dissect that for a second. I'm like, the Soch. So yeah, we have daily videos coming out. We're doing a new bit called Insider Minute. So each day we're going to break everything down within 60 seconds. Any news breaking that'll affect your bets, what our best picks are. Brad and I will be doing that every day. Like you said, Thursday, I'll be hosting Daily Insider. So we're giving our best stuff within 60 seconds. It's hard to cram so much in that amount of time. I've come to realize, I could go on and on and on, and now it's scrunch it down. But usually when I do sideline, I only get a minute anyways. So now that we don't have any set timelines when we do Daily Insider, it's back to the 60 seconds where I could be a speed talker if I need to be. So.
Now, it'll be good. It will be really good. And check that out. Find Stephanie on Twitter at Steph Otey. You see it right there on the screen. Also, Instagram, TikTok, all of that. So you can find Stephanie there. She's got new content every day as, again, March Madness is here. NBA in the middle of the season. So we're in the second half. Actually, we say it's the second half. It's kind of like somebody said this on Twitter. There's 20 games left. It's not the second half. It's the last third of the season in the NBA. So we have that. And it's very busy right now. Stephanie, thank you very much. And we'll see you again on Thursday. So looking forward to that.
Thank you so much. See you then.
All right. So we're all set. I am Kevin Rogers. She is Stephanie Otey. And you could find us on YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Vegas Insider. And you get the Daily Insider videos as well as stuff from Stephanie, the Great Day Nation. All of that you can find on our YouTube channel on Vegas Insider. I am Kevin Rogers. Once again, thank you so much. And as always, best of luck with your bets.